Anne Boleyn's failure to produce a male heir was the main reason for her execution in 1536. How far do you agree? Explain your answer. You may use the following in your answer: Jane Seymour and the birth of Princess Elizabeth in 1533. You must also use information of your own. 16 marks. This is the mark scheme for this question, which you can find out more about in our overview video. 10 of the marks are awarded for AO2, which is your analysis and evaluation of second order concepts. So you need to identify what that is for this specific question. This will be significance. We're thinking of the most significant reason for Anne Boleyn's execution. Now, the question argues that it was her failure to produce a male heir. Do you agree with that? Or if you disagree, what were the other significant factors that maybe played a more important role? With this question, you need to make a judgment, and there's no right or wrong answer, but you need to be able to explain why you think what you do. That brings us on to AO1, which is for the remaining 6 marks. That is your knowledge and understanding of the period. When explaining your thinking, you need to be bringing in evidence from your own knowledge to support your argument. These are the bottom 2 bands for this question. If your answer falls into these 2 bands, it might mean that your comments are perhaps a little bit general, so that means they need to be developed further. That could be by bringing in evidence from your own knowledge to support what you're trying to say, or making sure that the points you make are relevant to the question, so you've linked them back somehow. That might mean that you need a clearer structure, so it could mean that the examiner isn't entirely sure on what it is exactly that you're arguing. These are the top 2 bands. If you're scoring in these bands, it means that you've identified the second order concept and made a judgment. You've then supported that with relevant evidence and come to a justified conclusion. Your structure is clear, the examiner knows exactly what you're trying to argue. Overall, you've demonstrated a really good understanding of the topic and the question. There are lots of points you can make for your argument in this question, and as long as what you say is relevant and correct, the examiner will give you the marks. But here are some examples of what you could have said. So if you chose to support the statement and say that her failure to produce an heir was the most significant reason for her execution, you could use the point, evidence, explain structure. So you could, as a point, say that Henry desperately wanted a male heir in order to continue his dynasty. Your evidence could be, using the stimulus points in the question, the birth of Princess Elizabeth in 1533, following which Henry feared that Anne wouldn't be able to produce another male heir. Then to explain that, you could say that Jane Seymour offered another opportunity to produce a male heir, which necessitated Henry being free to marry and therefore executing Anne. You can see this is quite a detailed point, but it shows that I've really developed my thinking. I've analysed the question, I know what it's asking me to do. This kind of structure is what can help you to score in the higher bands. Do take a look through the rest of the points to see if there's anything you could have added to your own answer.